What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of AI Inside, the show where we take a look at the AI that is layered throughout so much of the world of technology. I am one of your two hosts, Jason Howell, joined by Jeff Jarvis, the other host and friend. How you doing, Jeff?
Hello, boss. Good to see you and friend.
Good to see you too. Yes, we have so much fun to talk about each and every week, and I love the themes that come up with this show. I'm just really enjoying it.
I'm learning so much. It forces me to go through the news every week and say,
Right.
"Oh, that happened. Oh, what does that mean?" And
Totally.
so it's really good for me.
Yeah, and it's making me more sharper in my own usage of AI and think about it differently. And now it's interesting because I'll have these little breakthroughs, and I'll tell like my wife like, "Oh, so check out what happened earlier today," and I share it with her, and her mind gets blown. She's like, "Oh, I got to learn how to do that." And so I
that's
know in
interesting.
my life it's actually kind of like it's kind of like growing a skill,
How about the
certain
girls?
skill set.
Are they?
They haven't. No. Well, as far as I know, they have not. Actually, okay. Let me correct on that.
Meet my new
older
best
daughter-
friend, Sally GPT. Yeah.
right. There's actually a story that I don't know that made it in today's rundown. Kind of about that. Or maybe it wasn't in the rundown. I think I saw it on a site where kids are starting to have these kind of like relationships and define that as you would with all of these different chatbots and like what that does to their development and everything. But my older daughter, who is 15, she has had one experience that I know of where she was working on something and stupid me, or maybe not stupid me, but in my like thinking about her problem or kind of approach or whatever, I posited out loud, "Oh, well, you know what I would do is blah, 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 blah." And I kind of did that. And then she was like, "Oh, I didn't think about that." I was like, "Oh no, what have I done?" But it was interesting because it was almost like an experiment. It was almost kind of like, okay, well, let's do that. And so we kind of, were able to take a look at that. She was able to kind of use that in assistance to her homework. And then, 5 days later, get the grade back. And I mean, she got a great grade. And, I felt like it was a collaborative experience, not entirely like do my homework for me. So it was an interesting kind of exposure to tool sets that I think is just going to, that exposure is going to necessitate and widen as they get older. So
What fascinates me is I work with a bunch of faculty, and they're using it like crazy.
yeah,
They're
even though they
almost
probably are
reflexively.
like, "I hate AI in the classroom
It's
when the kids
mixed.
are using it," but for us,
Mixed.
it's great.
Yeah, exactly. What I have to do, Jason, is I've got to when I finish this book. So so over here on the credenza. Those are all the books that have gone into this book.
No way.
I mean, I haven't read
I'm
every
so in
page
awe.
of every one of them, but they're all. That's my bibliography. Plus thousands of sheets of paper there that are printouts. And so
That's
when I
respect.
finish this book about the line of type called Hot Type, out soon. as I
Hot
get
Type.
done.
Love
Type,
it. I don't know
yeah.
that I knew the
Well, the
name.
title, yeah, so that's the title.
Oh, when did you
Hot
pick the
Type.
title?
A while ago, the publisher went for it. So Hot Type, the magnificent
Love it.
machine that gave birth to mass media and drove Mark Twain mad.
Love it. That sounds
Anyway,
fascinating.
Once I finish
Yes.
with that, I really want to get better at using the tools and
Yeah.
understanding things better. So I've got to try to find more reasons. I think I mentioned to you for the next book that I'm writing, I'm trying to keep everything in PDFs so I can use Notebook
right.
LM to help me organize it and see where that goes. And just I think it'll motivate me to try out the tools more.
You're going to have to build your own mega computer and have your own kind of machine to feed all of this stuff in, have a hyper specialized just for you locally.
Well, that's kind of the
research
story we
machine.
have today about downloading your own AI, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, totally. Well, before we do get started, want to give a huge thank you to Steve Remington, who is this week's patron of the week. Patreon.com/AI Inside Shows, where you can go to support everything that we do. And I'd love to see more people supporting. This is a wonderful way to directly support the work that we're doing behind the scenes. And Steve, you've been with us for a while, so thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, indeed. And also for everyone, just go to aiinside.show to find everything you need to know, audio, video. It's all there. Subscribe, that sort of stuff. Okay, and without further ado, let's jump right into the news. I think the top block is kind of meta. There's two stories that are really, really interesting about how AI is influencing, obviously, how business is done, and Meta is moving to fully automate the creation and targeting of digital ads using AI by the end of 2026. This is a really big deal because what is it? Something like 97% of Meta's revenue is made up from advertising. And so no small percentage as far as that's concerned. Right now, Meta's tools can recreate new variations of existing ads. This video that's showing on the video version has nothing to do with it.
No, it's Joanna Stern's story from last week. Yeah.
Wonderful story. I absolutely love that. I'm so happy we talked about that. The next phase of these tools is to let brands upload a product image and a budget, and then kind of let the AI generate all of the aspects of the ad. So you're talking visuals, your video, your text, selecting your target audience, budget allocations. I mean, you name it. It will also actually personalize ads in real time for people. So different users will get different ads based on individual and immediate factors. So things like location and stuff, which I suppose that's nothing new. Sometimes, the current ad market serves us an ad if we happen to be close to this or close to that. But, you throw those two letters in AI and suddenly everybody gets far more curious and interested. So, yeah.
I'm so glad you're leading with this story because I'm absolutely fascinated by it on a few levels. One is, as we looked at VO last week and the week before from Google.
And Willing in today.
And the really impressive level of video that it's come up with. The first response is you're not going to make a 3-hour movie with it, but you can certainly make a 30-second commercial with it. Mm-hmm. And what would stop you? You advertising agencies in the creative side for a long time have done storyboards and prototype kinds of ads and all kinds of things. When we started Entertainment Weekly, we had these things they put out as kind of fakey ads to test them. Well, now you can create 100 versions of creative to see what works. You've got no end of A/B testing. It's A through Z testing. Mm-hmm. And the creative cost goes down to nil, practically. The creative possibilities go way up. And that's just the creative side. Right. Then you go to the media side, to the data side, being able to take advantage of personalized data today on Facebook and Meta better than anywhere else, this side of Google, is a tremendous opportunity, way ahead of big old media. I screamed at them for the last 2 decades that they should be getting their first-party data act together. I still see slides on people's, I just saw this other day, our new first-party data strategy. They never did it, so they don't have the data, but Meta has the data, and Google has the data. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so the possibilities for targeting and efficacy are unlimited. And it just really struck me when I saw this story that I think everyone hasn't paid enough attention to AI in advertising. I think this is where it's going to, just like the internet, I'm talking live before your very eyes right now, but in a sense, the internet first hit the music industry as the snowball turned into the avalanche. It was music that was affected first. I think in this case, AI's real impact, I'm just saying this out loud, is going to be most on advertising first as an industry. Mm-hmm. Other fields, science and other things, yes. But I think in terms of affecting the way it operates, I think advertising is in for huge change.
And especially when you're talking about generative AI, it's kind of the perfect combination of strengths, right?
Yeah.
It is analysis of who should get what. It's also analysis and evaluation of what's most effective for this person, that person, the community at large. It's generation of creating things that are specific to this person versus that person. And then when you talk about real time, which, I think eventually we get there where AI is so, these processing systems and the power behind it are so powerful that these things happen closer to real time than they are right now. They're far from real time, I think, in a lot of the ways that we're experiencing AI, be it generated video. Obviously, it's not serving frames in real time, but I feel like eventually we get there, long enough timeline. And when you combine all those things, that hyper personalization, data analysis to know what's effective, and the generative capabilities of these things, you get to this kind of mecca point for advertising where they're like, oh my goodness, if it works, we can give it exactly the right thing to the right person at the right time. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
I hadn't thought about that speed angle. I think you're right. That you finish watching a soccer match and it could do product placement for a given brand right then. You can know the context of what you watch and even create the creative.
Oh my goodness.
On the
Totally.
run. But now here's the paradox to all this. The other story we've talked about frequently on the show that has fascinated me is that advertisers are going to advertise to computers more than to people. No, maybe not more than, but in great measure. So a lot of what we just discussed,
especially when we're talking about agents and all that.
Exactly.
Is that kind of where you're going? Okay.
Right. So you're
right.
trying to convince the agent to in turn give it to the person. So creative doesn't matter then, really.
Yeah.
It's all about data analysis and what message are you giving and how are you trying to do that. It's more like the structure of how programmatic advertising works, where when you open a web page, there's an auction that goes on in the background that says, this guy's a hoodie customer. What do you want to give him? And who wants them? How much? Right? And that kind of, back to your point about speed, structure will go on with not only the web, but also with agents. And then, so that changes advertising in an entirely different way, where now it's pure data, no creative, no messaging. It's more about some kind of weird new game of negotiation that nobody's figured out yet.
Right. How is that maneuvered behind the scenes? How are sites or destinations ranked differently? That's actually a conversation that I had with Nick Fox from Google a couple of weeks ago. Talked about how AI search ranks differently from like traditional search and everything. All these things are just going to be completely upended and transformed. Absolutely.
And all of this hits on my favorite subject, the subject that I've devoted my books to, the Gutenberg parenthesis magazine, soon hot type. And the next book I want to write, which is about the death of mass media. This is the final stake in the heart of mass media. Because the idea that you're going to put an ad somewhere where you're going to talk to 5 million people at once is so old school, so ridiculous, when instead you can be far more targeted, far more effective and efficient in the creative and in the data and in who you're talking to than in old mass media. And so mass media will not be able to compete with this.
So then, well, that sounds kind of dire then. So then what is on the other side of that?
Then I think we have...
What replaces mass media?
Everybody's a podcaster.
Niche media or
yeah.
kind of small pockets.
And this is where I go back. Have I done this before? Have I held up this prop before on the show? So this is a very thick book. For those of you on audio, I'll slam it. It's a very thick book.
It shook the camera. It was so heavy.
It did. The American Newspaper Directory of 1900. And in
wow, look at that thing.
It's thick as hell. In 1900, there were 46 daily newspapers in New York City alone, counting Brooklyn.
Wow.
Right? And there were scores of weeklies, monthlies, magazines, and such. Amazing numbers, right? That's the world. And that was after steam-powered presses and after the linotype. So we were starting mass media then. We started to see consolidation. But before that consolidation, we had a world where everyone was a niche in a community. And we're going back to that, I think.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
It is.
Yes.
It is. So this advertising story might seem like, oh, it's advertising. I don't care, but I don't like advertising. True, fine. But it's what gives you all this free stuff you get.
It drives everything.
It's going to change immensely.
Love it or hate it, advertising drives everything the way we are used to experiencing it right now.
And I wonder, Jason, too, as we talk about this. So on this show, you folks hear ads when Jason pauses, and then there's an ad in there. I imagine that can change immensely, right? That it can be context sensitive to what we're doing.
You're right.
Right? If I were an investing man, and I'm not, I'm chicken. I'd try to invest in new structures for serving dynamic ads and creative into podcasts and video.
Oh my goodness, you're absolutely right.
Huge.
If the person on the other end or the organization on the other end has enough information, enough knowledge about that particular person and their listening habits and all this stuff, to then be able to serve a instantly at the point of download generated ad that sounds like a normal ad but is very specific to, oh man, that's brilliant. And I'm sure, have to imagine someone's working on that right now. Have to imagine this is not
And
the
hey, folks, place
first
them
time
here.
this has ever been
Place
thought.
them here. Where better
Yeah.
to place your AI ads than AI Inside?
Hey,
huh?
let's test them.
Yeah.
We'll be your testing ground for this
Exactly.
new type of podcast ad. I guarantee you we're going to
I've got to go look
That's
for
smart.
somebody who knows about this stuff to have on the show. Because I think
That would be amazing. That's a really cool conversation. I would love that. Cool. And if anyone out there has any thoughts on that as well, contact at aiinside.show. Let us know. Meta is also shifting its internal risk assessment process and going towards AI automation there too. So, a couple of news stories this week about how Meta is really leaning into AI to transform its business. And they're but one of many companies obviously doing this. Up to 90% of its decisions about things like privacy, societal risk, content integrity, apparently will be AI driven. Algorithmic changes, new safety features, content sharing rules, approved by AI systems potentially. So this is all kind of things that I think right now we're used to humans obviously being integral to understanding the ethical kind of aspects of why versus why not, and to really manage a lot of this. And I don't think that this necessarily means the human aspect goes away, but based on this article that you put in here from NPR, definitely sounds like a lot of it is heading in the way of automation, and humans will still be involved, but they say we'll still handle novel or high risk issues. Automation would still include things like youth safety, AI safety, violent content. Those kind of seem like high risk issues to me. So you better get it right if you're going in that direction. It's very interesting.
So you were just more responsible than I was in my handling of this. I put it on the socials. The headline in NPR was, Meta plans to replace humans with AI to assess privacy and societal risks. Mm-hmm. So I went on the socials, and my smartass headline over that was, what could possibly go right?
What could possibly?
Nice. So in response, Andy Stone, who's in public policy, that is to say PR, communications at Meta, responded to me on Threads and said, that's not what's happening, Jeff. And it's a wildly sensational headline. We're automating processes by setting up what's essentially a step-by-step decision tree. When the answers are known, AI will pre-populate them. The process is still overseen by people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we shall see. But I try to avoid smart-assed, reflexive, moral panicky things. But I couldn't resist with that headline.
I mean, and you heard from the horse's mouth. I think we need to offer them a platform to come on talk about it.
Oh, we can do that. Yep.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. I mean, to a certain degree, though, when I think about this, how many articles have I read? And I know that I know that people exist out there whose sole kind of position at places like Meta and social media networks is to do the like soul crushing, heart destroying job of monitoring for really horrible content that's being shared, and how doing so negatively impacts their lives if exposed to too much of that stuff. And so that kind of strikes me as, yes, it's important. It's important for, I think, there to be humans integrated and overseeing this process. And also AI could be the perfect tool to save kind of our psyche from having to be the ones to do that.
Yes. There's always a but.
There's always a but.
The concomitant danger or risk is that some vital and credible speech will be killed due to too much caution. If you are a
100%.
person in Ukraine and you want to show what's happening in the real world of Ukraine right now in the war, it's going to be grisly and unpleasant, and the machine will most likely throw it out, but then we're not going to be informed from witnesses in ways that matter.
Right.
Or the horrible story in Colorado this week, where there was video that's now being looped on television over and over and over again. But that kind of video starts in social. And if it's not exposed there, do we not see it in the rest of the world? So I'm not saying that this is an impossibility. It's just there's going to be a lot of false positives on this.
Super true. Very, very important. You're absolutely right. None of these, we're very used to, recognizing the fact that filter systems, automated systems are not 100%. We know about AI that it's not 100% on anything. And so absolutely there would be false positives, and also just the potential for shaping it to be whatever one person decides it should be. And, how does that impact communities who rely on information, accurate information?
Yeah, meanwhile, we still have the oversight board is still kicking along, and I saw they had a release of I think this week where they have fought against. Meta has always been against the female breast, right? In any form, they immediately took it out, and then they got in trouble for that, as others did in their time. AOL way back in the day for breastfeeding and mastectomy and so on. And so then the oversight board just came around and said that in cases of certain cultures where what we would call nudity is part of the culture, to take that down is wrong and insulting to that culture. It's kind of the National Geographic sign here, right? As we were kids and could look through it and see things we couldn't see here because the cultures were different. And it's interesting that the constant effort of the algorithmic management of human content is to make us all the same.
Yeah.
And that's the other issue, is that it's really hard to build in cultural differences into this in terms of what's considered bad. But yes, I think you're right. In terms of the workers who deal with this, it's a huge human cost. And anything that helps that, I'm for, as long as there is a way to mitigate those other risks we just listed.
Yeah, that's really important, especially what you said about the cultural kind of mismatch. That's absolutely. Yeah. Well, interesting stuff. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about a big partnership that we had to know was going to happen eventually with the New York Times. Well, it has, and we'll talk about that in a second. Yes, the New York Times has been one of the most notable holdouts, I'd say, in AI licensing deals, and they have now signed, or it has now signed, I don't know the right way to say that, its first generative AI deal with Amazon. So it's Surprise. New York Times and Amazon. News articles, NYT cooking recipes, The Athletic, which is kind of sports-related content, used to power Amazon's Madam A. I almost said the word. Madam A voice assistant to also train its AI models, and it is a multi-year agreement. So it really kind of shows one of the longest holdouts. And I don't know how many times we've talked about the New York Times and its court cases against OpenAI and Microsoft for copyright infringement around its AI model training.
So the issue I've had with this, and I've talked about it before on the show, is that all these deals are to cut off legislation and litigation from and use of editorial columns to attack specific companies. So Amazon just bought themselves silence from the New York Times. Basically, that's what the deal is. Now, in fact, there is content. It's the New York Times. It's the New York effing Times that will be valuable, and they will be free to put it up in certain contexts. And if you look for a recipe and they say, hey, I have the recipe from the New York Times, okay, that's cool. That's just another form of search. But the problem I have with this every time is it leaves out the vast ecosystem of news. It's the big guys doing their money grabs. Most of them are hedge funds. The New York Times isn't, but still. It's the big old incumbent legacy players who get the money and get the attention. And all of the folks out there on local newspapers and on local blogs and podcasters and newsletter people and startups are all left out. And I had a conversation just Monday with somebody, and I just wrote up my thoughts on this, is that I keep on pushing the news industry. The rest of the news industry should create an API for news, which I think I've mentioned here before. It's inspired by our very first second show, with Sven Stürmer Taulo, just love saying the name, who was then the CTO of Schibsted, the Norwegian and Scandinavian publisher. And the example that they showed by bringing all media in, basically creating an API to bring all media in to create a Norwegian language LLM, What would it mean to do that here? How could we gather together independent media in this country and say to the AI companies, here, you want it, okay, let's talk. We can make it easy for you.
Here's the feed.
Right, here's the feed. But let's talk about placement. Let's talk about use. Let's talk about brand. Let's talk about links. And let's talk about money. And let's also talk about, in the Shipstead model, technology exchange. What can we get back for this that's going to benefit us in our businesses, because we're all behind because we're Neanderthal newspaper people, and how can this work together? I think I can make the exact same argument when it comes to academic publishers. For the good of the universe, their stuff should be training these models. They should be available through these models. And we want this smart, peer-reviewed work to be there. How do we, as a society and an economy, figure out how to make that happen? So these one-off deals frustrate the hell out of me. Because fine, the New York Times got some money. The rich get richer. Cool.
And doesn't solve anything.
Nothing.
Doesn't solve the bigger problem. Yeah, and like, what is the incentive? Like, are you optimistic that U.S. publishers who are signing these individual deals can get on the same page with each other to come up with something?
Not at all.
That?
The big guys cannot. I went through a hellscape. How many years ago now? I'm so old. In the early days of the internet, kids. In the late end of the last century, actually, it was something called New Century Network, because we call it the New Century. And this was an effort to bring together the top, as I remember, a dozen newspaper chains in America. Have I told this story here to you?
Tell it. Tell
Okay.
it.
So it's what I did in class all the time. If I've said this before, tell me if I'm repeating myself.
No, please.
So they were going to come together to create an online collaboration such that they could have single sign-on across all the major newspapers in the country, shared content, shared advertising, shared technology, all kinds of things. And they brought together the money, and they hired staff, and they started building things. And then how did it get killed? Along came Kleiner Perkins, a major VC, who said, this thing could work. This could compete with AOL. We like it so much, we want to invest in it. What's not to love? Well, half the newspaper publishers said, oh, we're never letting those barbarians have any of our equity, have any of our play. No, we're too good. We're too important. They don't know what this is. They don't know the value of us. The internet's a fly in the ointment. We're the big guys. So it died. Every effort that I've seen to, except for lobbying, the one thing that they get along on is lobbying. Every other effort to actually collaborate in business, they don't do. So no, I don't think at the high level there's any chance these guys come together. But what if you go to places that have like INN, which is Independent Investigative News across the country, right?
Right.
California has a network through KQED for sharing the best news. Public radio.
So kind of like on a smaller scale, kind of almost like a union sort of
kind of
group.
A cooperative.
A cooperative, that's a better, the better term.
Yeah. So that's what I would like to see.
Because the more that partnerships like this happen with the biggest players, the less likely they are to kind of be open to alternatives, because they're probably getting the better deal in their mind doing one-off like this than they would be in the larger
AI
scale,
companies.
right?
Yeah, because the AI company's goal is not licensing.
Oh, absolutely not.
This is a PR policy move. This is keep me out of court, keep me out of your pages, and keep me out of your lobbying, and then we're happy.
Let us continue doing what we're doing.
And so if you look at the lower level, the AI company is going to look at the whole lower level and say, well, they're too little to sue us. But I think there's a chance to come together and say, you can ignore the big guys. We will give you what you need across news, more than you need. And then you can ignore the big guys. And the New York Times, fine. We'll guarantee we'll never download anything from the New York Times ever again. Fine. That's fine.
Interesting.
So,
well, kind of definitely along these terms, but different different aspect of the industry, not newspaper publishing, of course, but music publishing. We have Universal Music Group, Warner Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment in advanced talks, reportedly, with Udio and Suno, which are music generation services. I've used both. I haven't used them in quite a while, but I've definitely explored them. Very interesting products. Potentially licensing their music catalogs for training and for use, which is essentially, Udio and Suno, I'm sure, those services are undoubtedly created off of that licensed material, but they are preparing, I'm guessing, for a possibility of being sued out of existence by these major, groups that have a lot of money driving their own litigation. And so Bloomberg reports on these negotiations that are happening. I think also labels like this, as much as they probably haven't historically liked companies like Udio and Suno doing what they're doing, no question, they look at what they're doing and they go, there's opportunity there. This is a new aspect of our business that didn't exist before. And if we, again, if we can be in control of this, people would love to make their own bespoke Beyonce song or whatever, given that everybody's getting their piece of the pie. And really, what does that mean? That the music labels are getting the majority of the pie and everybody else is getting table scraps. But that's apparently happening behind the scenes. Udio and Suno talking to these major labels about kind of making this a little bit more legit, a little bit more official, and attribution, compensation for artists' work to allow this to happen. Suno and Udio still, they're seeking flexibility. They want to be able to experiment and try new things and not be locked into a very rigid structure around what they can and can't do. Who knows what this will turn into, but it's definitely kind of same, but different with the previous story.
Yeah, it's very much like the previous story. And I think that the same arguments apply to music as text, that we can all listen to music. We can listen to Beethoven and be inspired by it, and we can listen to Beyonce and be inspired by it.
Yes.
As long as we don't plagiarize per se. So this is, again, aimed at reducing risk of litigation.
Yep.
However, I also think it's interesting that, first, so 2 years ago, I interviewed a big copyright lawyer at the BDMI, Bertelsmann's investment arm conference that they have about AI. And he advised the whole room and said, listen, this stuff's going to take years to play out in the courts. He said, if he had to guess, he thought that a lot of this would be decreed to be fair use and transformative. But you want to get going now. So my advice to you is negotiate stuff now so you can do what you want now, whatever the courts are going to do, whether you're right or wrong. And I think that was probably good advice. I think that's what this is about, is that we might win in the long run, but in the short run, let's just protect ourselves. The only difference I think I see to the users, but I don't know how this is going to get handled, if they buy Beyonce's music, what happens if I come into one of those apps and say, give me this song in the style of Beyonce, and I use the word. If I say Beyonce now, it's probably like, we don't want to hear that. We don't know.
Yeah,
we don't
la,
want
la,
Beyonce.
la, la, la.
Well, be who? Be who? Taylor who? We don't know.
Right.
But if it gets to that point where I want this song in the style of Taylor Swift's going to have something to say about that.
Uh-huh.
She's not going to be happy with 100 copycatters authorized. So I've got to believe there's going to be limits, even with this, of what the artists are going to allow in terms of the use of their name. Now, in terms of their style, that's different. I can do a Dolly Parton song tomorrow, and as long as I don't call it a Dolly Parton song, as long as I don't use any of her music, don't use any of her lyrics, pretty funny to imagine me doing a Dolly Parton song, right?
Working 8 to 4.
Right? I mean, I can be inspired by Dolly Parton, as I am often.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to be interesting to me is what's the impact going to be to you, the user, in these services? And I don't know. It's still complicated.
Well, I know that I've heard, I didn't look it up before the show, but I know that I have heard of labels kind of pursuing their own pieces of this as well, saying we've got these artists in our kind of, in our court. contractually speaking, how can we be the ones to offer the Jay-Z music generation service, versus
Right.
something like Udio and Suno doing that in a roundabout sort of way. And so I know that they're interested. I mean, it is an interesting direction. Not all artists are anti-AI as well. There are a good amount of artists out there that are curious and open to exploring what new pathways this opens up. Understanding that, my voice is still my voice. Yes, I want limits and control on how my voice and likeness is used, but I'm open to you creating a song that's generated in my style, because you'll always know that I'm the real thing, and that's just a generic kind of representation of it.
Well, that gets us back
yeah.
to technology exchange, I think. I saw a story today, I didn't put it in the rundown. A bunch of big media people in Europe were saying, like, we don't need the AI companies, we can do our own. Oh, BS. BS, you can, right? It goes back to New Century Network. We don't need the internet, we are our own internet. No. But the AI companies could well white label what they do through these music brands. If Beyonce had her own AI thing, right, what would that look like? If she were in control of it, if it were an ability to play with my music, make fan versions, but under certain circumstances, that's interesting, because do I need to go to Beyonce for that? No, but that's the power of it. That becomes a distribution play then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, imagine artists using these systems to collaborate, or not artists, consumers, fans, using these systems to collaborate, let's say in air quotes, with a virtual version of Beyonce, coming up with something that's actually pretty good, and then Beyonce saying, I'm going to turn that into a real song. And then, just collaborated with a fan. I mean, it opens up all sorts of interesting directions if artists are open to it. And that's a big if, because I think a lot of artists are still very, repelled by the idea. But
in the Gutenberg parenthesis, I wrote about, second plug, I wrote about an idea that I've had for years called credit right. That in the string of creativity, copyright is too limiting. It just says this is a property, this is a thing to be owned. Whereas we know in creativity, there's a string of contribution. Somebody inspires somebody remakes that, somebody puts it in a film, somebody recommends it. And we need systems, I think, to recognize all those contributions to creativity. And what we do with it, whether we choose to recognize it with money or credit or just simply ego, is a different question then. But I think we do need new ways to recognize the possibility. Now we're in a hugely collaborative medium.
Yeah.
Through the internet, and look what's happening on TikTok. That itself changes copyright.
Yeah, indeed. We will we'll talk about what's happening on TikTok in a little bit. Before we get there, Google quietly launched a new app called AI Edge Gallery. And this is an app that you're not going to be able to find. You're not going to be able to go to like the Play Store to find this. You actually have to go to GitHub and download the app from there. You also need a Hugging Face account, because essentially what this allows you to do is run AI models on your device directly on your phone. So Android now, iOS coming soon. It's all entirely offline. These open source models that you might find on Hugging Face, for example, can be installed and used. Yes, you're going to need a premium device in order to do this. You're going to have to have a fast
Honey,
CPU.
I need to buy a new phone. Honest to God.
It's funny. There's a whole, I've seen enough Android evolution over the years to see how things jump over time. And right now we're kind of at the point where we're starting to see smartphones with 16 gigs of RAM. And, if not 20, there might even be one that has 20 gigs of RAM. And I think the last time I saw that, however many months ago, I was like, who on earth needs 16 gigs of RAM? It's what I say every time there's a big jump. But this is like perfect case for it. It's like, oh, well, now I get it. That would actually be very useful. So if you're running these models on your smartphone. But image analysis, interactive chat, text summarization, code generation, all happening on your device as if it were, a desktop running an AI model, but it's in your pocket. Pretty neat.
That's pretty neat. And I'm not exactly sure how I would, if you were to do this, and I think you probably will because you're an Android
curious,
jockey.
yeah.
Yeah. What could you imagine might be the first useful use to put it to? Can you think of any?
I don't know. Like, I think if it were a couple of years ago, I probably would have said something like image generation or song generation. Probably not song generation. I guess we're not looking at that here, but image generation, because if I wanted to do image generation a couple of years ago, it would have been, I would have to pay for a service. You didn't have as many options and ways to do that. Now you do. Like now my Pixel, when I get my Pixel, it has Pixel Studio installed on it automatically, and I can start firing off images. So even that immediately became kind of no value sort of thing. It's like, well,
right.
Yeah, it's table stakes. So I honestly don't know. I don't know what I would do here. I think probably what I would do though is I haven't spent a lot of time going through open source repositories to see what kind of interesting models exist. And I'm sure there are some out there that would catch my eye and make me go, oh, well, that would actually be kind of interesting to test out. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's not just the generic kind of text-based LLM that gives me summarizations or writes this prose for me, or an AI chatbot. I'm sure people will use this for AI chatbots. The kinds that you can't get other places. Some of them definitely NSFW related, right? Like this is it, because it's open source. It opens up the door for you to do things that services don't feel comfortable putting online. There's a whole bunch of different directions you can go here. I don't know what I would use it for. I have no clue.
But it makes me think of a few things. One, I'm just recalling. Remember the GPT store?
Yeah.
Right. And I don't see anybody discussing that really anymore. But I think that's a world where we end up, is that it's not the platforms. Last week with Benedict Evans' slides, we saw that platforms are commodities now. Or I'm sorry, models are commodities. What I meant to say is that models are just like platforms now. The internet is a platform. AI is a platform. What's interesting is the applications on top of it. And who's going to take these things and create something on top that's going to be useful. And I think this is just another way you can do this locally. And so you're probably, unless you're a real geek using it, you're probably using this for some layer on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm amazed in our Discord, and my Discord for the two Patreons that I have. I don't participate nearly as much as I want to because I can't find time for everything. But thankfully, some of the members of the community, including some of our executive producers, are very active in their kind of exchanging how they're using AI models. And like I open it up and I see what they're talking about, and it blows me away / I don't understand any of it.
Yeah.
Because it's not go to ChatGPT and feed it this prompt and get the output. It's setting up it's doing exactly, to a certain degree what this app allows you to do on a smartphone. Setting these things up, creating the rules, being really intentional and spending hours upon hours crafting it so that you get it to be a very specific use case for a very specific thing that I lack the time or the kind of patience to do. Sometimes I just want to open a thing up.
Jason's saying he has a life.
Do this. Yeah. What's that?
Yeah, Jason's saying he has a life.
No, I have this business. Yeah. And as hard as I try to do everything, I just can't find time. You mentioned the GPT store, and this is what it is, chatgpt.com/GPTs. So it's not like they may have launched it as the GPT store, but you wouldn't even know it if you were looking at it. There are a ton of GPTs that you can go in here and mess around with. It's kind of similar to the assistant conundrum that I bring up a lot lately, apparently, which is that, early on Assistant did a few key things, and then eventually they opened it up to third parties and it could do a million things, but you never knew about it because it did so many things that you never knew how to get to them, how to use them or whatever. And this store is filled with stuff. I'm sure there's some good stuff in here, but I bet there's a lot of stinkers as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wonder if this is an entirely new ecosystem, like an app store.
Yeah, I think it is.
That we
Absolutely.
end up, and is that what the Google, what's it called again?
What? The app, the AI Edge Gallery.
AI Edge, right? I wonder if that's
it's just an app that runs the models. I don't think
that's
that
what
you're
I'm saying.
using.
Yeah, but that's a door. It's a doorway to what I think is a new generation of App Store.
Yeah, I mean, oh, I see what you're saying. I think probably the App Store in this model is the Hugging Face site because it's the one that has all the models, right? This, I haven't, and mind you, I haven't run it, so I don't know if it has kind of like a marketplace or a place that you can get to the models within the app. That would actually be really handy if it does, but I haven't seen it firsthand. In which case, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Interesting, though. I do want to play around with it and kind of see what I come up with. And again, if you all have cool uses of it, contact at aiinside.show.
I wonder whether you can do it on a Chromebook.
I did not see that.
Given that it's Android, can you sideload onto a Chromebook?
Okay. Well, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't see why not. Does a Chromebook have the requisite requirements for
versus a phone? Good
power.
Good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of Chromebooks are kind of lower power, but I don't know. I mean, it has to have at least 6 gigs of RAM.
But this also goes back to our discussion with Intel a few weeks ago, is what does AI inside really mean?
Yeah.
Now we start to see it.
Yeah, totally.
If you start running not just applications, but entire models locally. If you do it on your phone, you're certainly going to want to do it on your PC as well.
100%. Interesting. Mary Meeker, a bit of a tech prophet, let's say, when it comes to trends. She drops a yearly internet trends report.
They haven't been yearly lately. They used to be internet,
been.
And she stopped doing it. So the world was silent with Mary Meeker. She hadn't been doing internet trends. They were these humongous, 5 times the size of Benedict Evans' slideshows, and she wasn't doing them. And now she's back.
She's back, and this time with AI, of course. 340 pages, I believe.
So we'll be here for about 4 hours, folks.
So yeah, starting chapter 1.
So I went through some numbers. Should I start?
339 pages. Sorry, close.
Guided tour. If you go to the, and this is confusing, the page number on the top won't match the page number on the slide. So it's the page number on the slide.
Yes.
So if we go to number 4.
Number 4.
What struck me there was the lower left one. For those of you on audio, we're going to have to describe them. So it's internet versus leading USA-based LLM total current users. And it shows a penetration of the internet to 90% over, how many years ago was that? I can't see.
It says 23 years ago.
23 years, right? And then there's a red line which shows 90% penetration for LLMs in 2 years. What struck me about this, Jason, and it's relevant to the conversation we just had, it's not because an LLM is an entirely separate thing. That rode on the back of the internet. Right. Yes. So now everybody on the internet has LLMs operating. So that's why it got to 90% flash. And so I think that's...
It didn't start from ground zero.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, you're right. You're right.
Right.
Internet did.
And so that's what interests me is that I think we credit, the models are amazing. They can do terrible, wonderful things. And there's this huge adoption. Well, yeah, it's adopted because it's in the internet now.
But there are other things that are in the internet, and I wonder how other things in the internet compare to this. You know, when you talk about crypto, or you talk about whatever.
Yeah. But if you email,
email, okay,
right? Everybody has email. YouTube, everybody uses YouTube. I bet YouTube's got to be up there, right? And so if you launch something now that is integral to, and that's the irony, is that in a way you could argue that it's killing the net, but it's dependent upon the net. It's feeding on the net. So I found that slide really interesting. Next, slide 6.
Let's see here. Slide 6. Here we go. Chart paint thousands of words. Charts paint thousands of words.
Right. So what fascinated me here? Oh, this is the upper left. This is going to be very random, folks. There's a line about rideshare versus autonomous taxi providers, San Francisco market, and really, really, really interesting that autonomous now has a bigger share than ride shares.
Yeah.
So Uber and Lyft versus Google's
Waymo.
Waymo, thank you. This tells me that Waymo is one hell of a business.
No kidding. I feel like I've been seeing that lately. Like, okay.
Yeah, and that's just one 7 by 7 mile space.
Yes. Yeah. San
and there's
Francisco's
a-
very unique market.
It
you know,
is.
so
And it's also a lot of tourists. A lot of people come in as tourists and say, "I got to try this. I got to try this."
right.
So how much
it's
is it?
it's the new trolley. It's the new trolley car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ding, ding, ding. But I found this really, really interesting. There was another story you didn't put the rundown, and I just put it there for interest. It's not really relevant, but I'll mention it quickly. Is an analyst arguing that Google should break itself up?
Oh yes.
And one of the arguments here
that.
was that, and I think it's a bit spurious, but one of those arguments was Waymo is more valuable than the world knows. If Waymo became a company tomorrow, and if it got into more cities, we'd see this going like crazy.
Wow.
So I found that a really interesting number. All right, next is 14. We'll try to get through this now. But you can stop me anytime, Jason. Around and around he goes, and where he stops, nobody knows.
There we go. 14.
Training set number data set size, number of words for key AI models, and that's just to mention that it's up 260% in a year. So even though the stochastic parrots said we should be going for smaller models, the models are still getting bigger, and they're using bigger trainer sets. Number 33.
I love that this chart dates back to 1950.
Yeah. Well, because AI did go back.
I know. I love that it's so complete like that.
So 33.
Okay, working on it.
So
Big doc. Yeah, we won't be able to get to all of these.
Look at
but
all.
Yeah.
You stop me anytime. Top 10 things. It sounds like a David Letterman moment. Top 10 things AI will likely do in 5 years, says ChatGPT. So this is the AGI thing, right? And generate human-level text, code, and logic. Create full-length films and games. Maybe I don't know.
Full length.
Full length. Understand and speak like a human. BS. It doesn't understand anything now. Power advanced personal assistants. Okay. Operate human-like robots. Run autonomous customer service and sales with a lot of angry customers.
Yeah.
Personalize entire digital lives. What the F does that mean?
Oh, yes. Anytime you're saying entirely everything, absolute.
Right. Build and run autonomous businesses. So I don't even need to be in business. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to make anything. I just start an AI going, and the money comes in, ka-ching, ka-ching. I don't buy it. Drive autonomous discovery and science. Autonomous? No. Collaborate creative like a partner. Well, okay, you say that now. So that's that one. Then if you go to 35, it says what it'll be able to do in 10 years. I won't do all of these. Conduct scientific research, design advanced technologies, simulate human-like minds. This is where they're going overboard, way overboard. So I just want to make that point.
Is this lining up with what Jan LeCun was talking about when he was on?
Yeah,
when
I
he
think
was
so.
talking, he said, yeah.
I think so.
Very,
And he was
very,
saying more
very
like
much.
15 years. He was farther out.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was trying. I don't think he would claim that it could do all these things that ChatGPT says, OpenAI says.
ChatGPT is like, look, I'm really cool. Check. It's kind of like its owners. It's like I'm all powerful. See, I'm all powerful, and you should be afraid of me.
All right. So one or two more.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 40. Number 40. This just fascinated me. So if you look at this is patents issued, and if you look at patents issued starting in the mid 90s, you see a huge increase, 6,300 patents granted in the 8 years after the internet, right? Then it plateaus a bit, and then boom, up it goes again. 6,000 patents, almost as much as many as those 8 years in 1 year. What AI?
Yeah.
So people are patenting the hell out of this. Now, whether that actually means productivity, I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. That's fascinating,
Isn't it?
Yeah, because the conversations that I get into with people when we're just talking about AI in general, often we get to the point that just kind of the basic kind of recognition of this moment feels significant in a similar way to the internet, the kind of the early days of the internet,
it does.
and that felt significant. And a chart like this kind of visualizes that to a certain degree, like at least from a marketable / innovation sort of perspective. Both moments are really inspiring people to come up with a lot of new ideas. That's what it tells me.
So that's probably enough, right?
That's fascinating. I love it.
Yeah.
And I love having you explain them to me, because when I'm presented with 300 pages of graphs, I can only make it like a handful of pages before I'm like, I just don't have the attention span for
It
this.
took me a while. So I'm going to do one quick more, but you don't have to go
Sure.
with it.
Yeah.
245 for those of you listening at home, is next AI use case frontiers. And this is according to Meeker and Company. So I think this is the things to watch out for. Medical discovery and development, precision manufacturing, robotics, scientific research, supply chain optimization, cybersecurity threat detection, personalized education. I think that's an interesting one. Autonomous finance, not sure what that is. Environmental and climate monitoring, and energy grid management. So that's where she says that things will go next. Note, we just had a big talk on the show about advertising, and that's not on there. Media is not on there.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But so this is all prognostication.
With that? No.
No, I think it's different. So
Yeah, it is
who knows where this is going to go? Everybody's claiming that it's going to revolutionize everything. We'll see.
I didn't think about autonomous finance. That sounds actually really handy for man, that's like my least favorite thing is sitting down with a budget.
I know.
I want my chatbot to do my budget for me. Actually, I don't. Not yet. Prove yourself first, and then maybe someday.
Go earn some money. Go be an autonomous business and make me the money, and then tell me how my finances are doing. Okay, that's the deal. That's your job.
I will,
agent.
Yeah,
go off.
Go to work. You will. If you need me, I will be sitting on a beach.
Yes,
that's where I'll be.
Make my podcast for me. Sell my ads for me. Just give me my budget.
It's not entirely
Pay my bills
impossible.
for me.
Yes. Okay. That's fascinating. Thank you for hopping through that. Folks should check out the entire thing, of which it is going to take you a few afternoons if you really want to spend time understanding.
If you really want to nerd on this stuff and agree or disagree with the predictions and see where it goes.
But yeah, it's an interesting thought experiment, if anything else. All right. Quick break. Then we're going to come back and talk about a few stories to round things out, including using AI for driving celebrity chefs' kitchens, let's say. That's coming up in a second. All right, ChatGPT is becoming a collaborator in the kitchen, in master chefs' kitchens, no less. New York Times has an article, which I can only show you a third of because it's covered by a big bar, about how big-name chefs are experimenting with generative AI. So inspiration is one aspect. So like brainstorming recipes. Another aspect of the business, streamlining their operations. Things like the technical process of making sausage, for example, or enhancing menu development or restaurant design. All of this stuff. There's one chef highlighted, Grant Schatz from Chicago's Next restaurant, which I've never been to, but I would love to check out. Sounds interesting. Creating fictional chef avatars. So creating these avatars of fictional chefs and then prompting ChatGPT, what are the kinds of recipes that this chef might make? And then seeing what it comes up with. And apparently he composed a nearly entirely AI composed 9-course meal as a result of it. I'd be a little afraid to eat the food, but I'd also be kind of curious.
I remember there were stories early in ChatGPT that people were doing a little bit of this, and it gave out poisonous things like add bleach, right?
Right. Be discerning. I trust like a big name chef to go over those ingredients and approve and maybe make changes, I suppose. But yeah.
But as the machine has no sense of meaning, it has no sense of taste.
None. That's
right?
a really
it doesn't
good
know
point.
what taste is.
No.
And what pleasure is.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. I, as with anything, this might give you an idea you otherwise wouldn't have had.
Well, and also what comes to mind is I can't tell you how many times I've downloaded a recipe because the recipe came highly recommended. Oh, this is amazing. This is wonderful. I make this every week, blah, blah, blah. And then I make it and I follow the recipe to a T. And it comes out either bland or gross or just not right, where I'm just like, I don't know. So if an LLM like ChatGPT is going off of information found online, because as you say, it has no taste, then it's kind of taking everybody's word for things like this mixes well with that, but only in this amount or only in that amount. It's probably going to get, unsurprisingly, it's going to get a lot of things wrong. It could also, though, draw connections that are compelling
Absolutely.
and unthought of. And oh wow, that actually worked. And I would be curious to taste that.
Yeah, and it's going to make it. What this machine is good at is associations. It knows that these
Yeah.
words are associated with each other. So
Right.
if you ask it for a Thai variation on a taco, can it pull out Thai ingredients and pull out the structure of tacos and substitute them and try out something for you to look at and say, does this sound good? Yeah, that's plausible. That's perfectly plausible. One of the most fun moments in my career, my long career, was when I worked at Condé Nast, and we started Epicurious, which is a great food site that has the recipes of Gourmet and Bon Appetit, though Gourmet may rest in peace. And the great thing we did was open it up. The people who ran it, Joan Feeney and Rochelle Udell, is they opened it up so that people could come in and make comments and change the recipes. I mean, this is gourmet. This is the high priests of food. But they would take a Mexican chocolate cake and say, I substituted half the water with coffee. And wow, was it good. And somebody else comes in and says, that was a little too much for me, but I did this much and it was okay. And then I added a little cream and it was really good. And right? And so variations on recipes that people actually try, that's interesting too. And that's something this thing can do, I think.
Well, I was inspired by you, Jeff, and so I opened up ChatGPT and I said, "Give me a unique Thai infused with Mexican recipe. Keep it simple." And it came back with Thai basil beef street tacos.
Hey, all right, what are the ingredients here? Anything interesting?
Let's see here. Well, anything interesting? You got ground beef, garlic minced, 2 Thai bird's eye chilies minced, or jalapeno for milder heat if you want to go more Mexican. Focus, neutral oil, fish sauce,
which is Asian, not Mexican. Right?
Yeah,
soy sauce, which is Asian, not Mexican.
Brown sugar, also often used in
you know what?
Asian cooking.
I'm coming over, Jason.
I think this could work.
Yeah,
man, I'm so curious. So my nights for making, my wife and I split the nights, and so we have different nights, and we come up with our own meals and stuff. And I wonder what it'd be like for me to like print this out and make it. Just see. I guarantee you the kids are discerning taste. They would potentially not like it, but I'm super curious. I might hold on.
What
to
kind of beef? How does it? Is it ground beef or is it?
It says ground beef. Yeah,
ground beef. Okay.
It's lean ground beef.
All
so
right,
they want it. They want it lean. Just so you know, Mexican crema or sour cream, I guess. Interesting. I mean, none of this sounds like wouldn't be good.
No,
It does sound a little interesting with the brown sugar, soy sauce, and fish sauce.
and the sophistication is amazing. Saute the aromatics. So it has gathered together what that means and put them in the recipe.
Right. Right.
Then crema twist. Mix sour cream with 1 tablespoon of lime juice. Steal it from your wedges. Oh, a little humor there. And chop cilantro. Ooh.
Amazing.
That's pretty
I don't
cool,
know.
Jason.
I'm kind of looking at this thinking it would be good. And real quick, I just want to throw out
Jason's
a huge thank you.
He's gonna make it and report back next week. Let's just.
I think I kind of need to. I hope I'm not getting myself into trouble here. The kids might throw the food at me if it doesn't work. The Ozone Nightmare is here for the live show to say Happy Wednesday, gentlemen. Can't stick around today, but I wanted to quickly throw a little change away and thank you both for the show. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Ozone. You are wonderful.
Much
really
appreciated.
appreciate you. Even though you're not here right now, that was about 15 minutes ago, but we appreciate you. Okay, now that I know what I'm going to be making for dinner, final story. We were talking a little bit earlier about Google's VO3. It has become a meme and a movement of its own on platforms like TikTok and Instagram and everything. And we're not just talking about the output of the model. The idea of the output is being kind of a driver for content and is really catching steam. And, an example here is the Ars Technica article that is talking about real people, real TikTokers, as it says, pretending to be VO3 AI creations. And in the process, kind of forcing people who are in their feeds to really question what they believe is real or not. And we're used to this in the opposite direction. We're used to seeing real stuff. And so then we're questioning, is this fake? And now real people are pretending to be fake which has now just kind of sends it in a completely different direction. It's like the deliberate mimicking of the style and the quirks of artificial intelligence generated clips. They have big, prominent labels that say 100% AI or say, VO3 or whatever the case may be. And, Google's VO3 created a realistic sounding rapper. I don't have audio shared and I'm not going to play it. But anyways, it's very interesting. It forces you to kind of question what you're seeing in a different way when you reverse it.
Plus, I just love culturally they're mocking it.
Yes, totally.
Right? It's a complete turnaround. Is that you're gonna replicate me? I'm gonna replicate you. Take that.
Yep.
And that's the power of culture online. That's what I love about it so much.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we don't know what reality is now. I just finished rewriting a paragraph. I'm editing hot type now, where in the late 1800s you had a time when typewriters came along, and then Edison and the gramophone came along, and then photography came along, and people's sense of reality changed. Before all that, the only way you could record an event was by a stenographer writing down what happened. And now you can record things, record reality in new ways. And now we're making reality in new ways. So
yeah.
And making tacos in new ways.
God, maybe. I'm committing to this like 75%
Yes,
right
75%.
now.
What are you? Okay, here's the question: are you going to ask your daughters first, or are you going to make it and make them guess whether it was AI, or how are you going to play this, Jason?
I think I got to do it. I think I just got to do it. Because when I look at the recipe, like it does not sound like a bad recipe.
No, it doesn't really at all.
It seems like it would be kind of, convincing and potentially delicious. And so why the heck not? Why not put my money where my mouth is?
I see a huge life change. This is the day, folks, when Jason's AI Cafe started.
Oh, there we go.
With music by the chef, because the AI is making it, so he has plenty of time. And yeah.
It's my AI fusion restaurant.
Right.
Is what it is. AI fusion.
Yeah, I like that.
Love it. Okay, well, I'll report back. I'm not sure which meal it is. I have to find the right one on the calendar, but I think I gotta check this out just to see. I've been very curious about it, so I might as well just try.
You're a good cook. I'm not. I'm terrible.
I mean, I can follow a recipe. Okay. I wouldn't say that I'm like a good instinct-driven cook necessarily. I'm getting better there. But
I'm terrible.
Yeah, just takes practice. A lot of following recipes. That's been my life.
It takes planning, and I'm not good at it.
Yeah, totally. I'm not very good at that either. Sometimes better than others, but thank you, Jeff. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, as always.
Yeah, just a great time. The Web We Weave, of course. The Gutenberg parenthesis.
Now in paperback.
Now in paperback. Magazine.
Soon
and then
to be
Hot Type coming soon. I love the name.
Not soon enough.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Well, looking forward to it when it does happen. JeffJarvis.com. Once it's out, it'll certainly be at Jeff's website.
They're working on the cover now, so I'll put that up soon.
Oh, cool. Can't wait to see it. I like your covers a lot. AIinside.show is where you can go to find everything you need to know about this podcast. It's pretty easy. It's all there waiting for you. And then patreon.com/AI Inside Show. If you want to support us on a deeper level, you can. You can always, you can support it at a number of different levels, get ad-free versions of the show, Discord community that I was talking about. You can get an AI Inside t-shirt by becoming an executive producer, of which we have many. Dr. Do, Jeffrey Maricini, WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina. That's always a mouthful. Dante St. James, Bono Dayrick, Jason Neiffer, Jason Brady, and Anthony Downs.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for your support.
Folks.
Thank you for driving this podcast behind the scenes. And that's all there is to it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on another episode of AI Inside. Bye, everybody.